starts at 6 p.m.
This is the NCNN Farm News Report.
Every click has their own.
That's a precious friend.
I keep it flowing on and off.
De 7:31 desde la 40.
It's funny how every town and city and everybody has a different sound. And a different way of speaking words, you know, the way they say the words, you know.
You know where Harker Island's at? And the people down there, you know, you seem to have some of them talk. And that one told me, he said, "You talk funny." I said, "You think I talk funny?" I said, "I can't know a word you say it."
I got some friends up in Tennessee, or actually on the other side of North Carolina there, and they talk funny. Oh yeah, like that, you know. Oh yeah.
Your old voice sounds clear and plain like English or something like that, you know, to me, which mine might sound the same way to you. But outside of us, somebody walk up this road now we hadn't ever seen before, you'd have to ask him 3 times what he said.
To me, the thing that is so interesting about dialects is the way in which it reflects a community and the way in which it reflects a culture. You can probably travel throughout the entire western part of the United States and not find dialect differences as distinct as you get within North Carolina itself.
And now we understand how diverse our people are, how interesting they are, how much language is a part of the culture. And you have to listen carefully. But it's the richness of North Carolina.
Hoy-toy, what is it? It's hoy-toy. It's high tide. It's when the tide comes up high, you know, on the sand side. Sand, like Pamlico sand. This is the Pamlico sand. Hoy-toy on the sand side.
The remote fishing communities along North Carolina's coast inherited the brogue of their English and Irish forebears. Over the years, they also added many new words and pronunciations to the dialect.
I know my uncle used to always say it, picking on me all the time, you know, when I was young, and, you know, we'd be fishing, you know. He said, "Come on, let's get going. It's hoy-toy on the sand soil. Last night the waterfall, night moonshine, no fish. What's the matter, Uncle Wood?" He said, "Get her going."
This here's the oil pot here, you ain't been in a couple of days. See this pot here belongs to my friend Vincent. Anything like that. Mine's a while, I done crab mine today and there won't be much in them.
A lot of times out of Raleigh and stuff, I mean, I'll go up and talk to people and they'll say, well, you got an Australian accent. And I'm like, no, I don't. You know, I got a down east, a high tide accent.
Like I told my speech teacher, I don't have a
I don't have
southern drawl. I got a high tide brogue, you know.
That's it.
And he said, "Why is a high tide brogue?" And I said, "You know, it's where we live. It's called the high tide brogue."
High tiders, yeah, I forgot about that one.
We want to talk the way we do. In order to talk the way we talk, you really have had to have grown up here.
If you're born and raised around it, everybody's, you know, it's normal to you. It's just like anything, you know. If you're born Japanese, you talk Japanese, you know what I mean?
What accent is that? A lot of people will look at me and say, "What are you? Is that an Irish, English accent?" And then somebody, the two or three of them together, and then he'll look at the other guy and say, "Yeah, I think it's more Irish English than English Irish or something," you know, like. And then, because I talk funny, a lot of people will say, "Well, how long have you been down here on the Outer Banks anyway?" You know.
They asked me where I was from. They thought I was from overseas somewhere. They didn't think, they wanted to know if I was American. I said, yeah. So they said, you talk funny. Said, you don't talk like we do. Well, they didn't talk like I did either.
Yeah, people make fun of us, yeah. You hear people make fun of us, but that's all right, because we think they talk different too, so.
You get made fun of wherever you go. This is true. If they didn't like you, they wouldn't talk to you, would they, Jim?
I always thought people from Hatters talk funny. They had an accent.
But you didn't think that people from Oatcoke talk funny?
No, people from
What accent do we have?
I don't know. You got a different one. You got a funny accent.
There's two words that I always keep in my back of my head on that is red and bed. Those two, bed and red. I would say, and then Oatcoke it's red and bed. And
care and care.
Is that what? I don't know.
They say properly, I don't care. We say I don't care, or they'll say I'm scared, which is properly. We say we're scared to death.
Yeah.
We're scared to death.
Yeah.
I was scared to death. It was so rough, I was scared to death. I mean, we don't say scared, which really scared is right. We say scared. We're scared to death.
Who says scared?
Well, everybody from Hatters, Buxton.
You do say scared?
Sure.
Oh, damn, I've been both ways. I've been scared and scared. Scared is worse than scared, I think.
To you, most of us are going to sound the same. But if you've been down here and you've been to each one of these communities, you pick up on it, and each little community talks just a little bit different from the community before.
Have plenty of net. Gonna catch more fish, gotta have plenty of net.
You gonna put them on out tonight?
Yeah.
When they told me that when I started teaching, that I was going to have to change my dialect so my kids would understand me. And I said, not where I'm going they won't, because they all talk just like I do.
I guess we should be very proud of it. It's nothing to, it's what you're born with, and you carry it with you all your life.
Spots are selling for 12 cents, and flounders 24. Shrimp are selling for 35, but still they ask for more. But here men on Hatters Island, they work for what they get. They work all day in the violent hot sun, and all they get is wet. They shove the reef on mullets and drag the sand for shrimp. Pay their bills on Saturday night, and they haven't got a cent.
We'll pull that pot up and we'll flip it over and let all the bait out, and then we'll pull the top out and shake the crabs in there, and then we'll reach down and get bait, fresh bait to put back in there. And you know, just throw it right back. I mean, that's all it is. About 250 times a day.
The way we sound. I don't care about changing. I don't think you could teach me over again.
I wouldn't be able to understand it otherwise.
Dialogue reaches right on down. I don't think there'll ever be a time which there won't be some of it here. So you got to you got a job to get it out of something other that's sunk in so deep. I can't help that, but that's the way it is. I'm proud of it today. I wouldn't take nothing in the world for it.
Like I'm a-talking, just plain old talk, I'll say, go in there and get me a sack of them taters out of the basement. And they'll say potatoes, and then the way the rhythm of it is, there's a bunch of us ham operators on talking to the northern people in Pennsylvania, and they said, we have tried and tried, we can't get the swing of it. That southern talk. Said we can't do it to save our life. And we told them we couldn't get that northern talk.
I'm not copying at this time. Let's see if there are any other check-ins, maybe someone I can copy.
Well, I'm located not far from the Cherokee Indian Reservation here in the Cherokee, North Carolina, and about 100 miles west of Asheville, and about 100 miles south of Knoxville, Tennessee, right here in the corner of North Carolina, joining Tennessee and Georgia.
Like North Carolina's coastal villages, the mountain communities of western North Carolina were set apart from other communities. They, too, preserved some features and older forms of English as they developed their unique dialects.
I remember when this road used to be gravel. There were signs up through here telling you to put it in low gear. Well, you had to because it wouldn't pull it in no other gear anyway. I've seen them sitting up through here, new cars sitting there smoking and steaming like it's going to blow up. Now we're about to enter the Cataloochee Ranch property. Now we're turning around in the yard at the Cataloochee Ranch, 1 mile high. If we're from Boston or somewhere like that, they say park the car, stuff like that, you know. Well, the way people talk around here, I guess it'd be what more like you call hillbilly style or something, I guess. I don't know, just mountain talk.
Our words is more simple. I always thought it was, you know. I always thought it was a whole lot simple. You know, you don't have to talk all day. I can say a couple things and that'd be it.
A lot of people ask me sometimes, I'm telling tales, and they say, you sit down and practice that talk? I said, no, I just talk where I growed up, and we growed up, you know, kind of the old way. And
I just had to use what I had, you know, I didn't. My son, I've got part of his shirt here in this binding, and here's your feed sack stuff on it. See here, you can see a little print on the back of it, where it's made out of a feed sack. The backing, it's old, it's ragged, and I've been aiming to rebind it, some of it.
I remember sitting on the porch when I was a kid, listening to my uncles and older brothers and neighbors sitting around talking, and it was just so nice.
Lots of people that do sometimes still use a lot of the old words, but it's like I said, the younger generation, you know, has gone to school, and they don't hear the older people, you know, most of them's gone, and they don't hear this language like the older people used, and it's a dying out.
My grandmother was from an isolated section of this county that's called Big Ridge, up around Glenville. My grandfather was from Macon County, and they both spoke a dialect, had a cadence to their speech and a way of talking that you don't hear anymore now, or it's very rare. It amazes me when I still hear somebody that talks the way my grandparents did. But I was raised by them here, and as a consequence of that, I talked the way they did. But when I first went to school, the teachers had trouble talking to me. I had trouble communicating with the teachers, and they told me very early on, Gary, I can't understand you when you talk. You know, you need to change that.
This college professor, I think he's from up north, over at ASU, he got up and introduced me, and he said, now I'm gonna tell you, said some of words you may not understand, you know, and he kept on talking, said you have to listen careful. And we got done telling this man, his wife walked up to me, and he said, I understood you a lot better than I did that college professor. I got tickled.
You know, when up here, you know, said, somebody talking real funny with a fine little voice, said, you ain't from around here, are you? We could, you know, I could stand, I could fight, yes. Sir.
And our grandchildren, we can tell they were raised in the eastern part of the state. They were raised in Greensboro. And I thought, well, they'd pick up our brogue, you know, by now. And she did the Christmas story the other night. And she still didn't talk like mountaineers.
Skisteliski, tohiteski sastanu, nikohila, dodaganokistani.
The isolation that contributed to the formation of some mountain dialects also helped Native Americans preserve their heritage in the rising tide of European culture.
It talks about where the Indians used to use a cloth to make a medicine. When they used to, they had to have a cloth to put their medicine on. And that's what he's talking about on that song.
Yeah, let me set it right here. This is one of my frog bowl. Got the what? They gonna scream. Two last ni gonna. No one. That's I was making pottery. Yeah.
And my name is Cherokee language, Maga Wodagai. Nole Okshigunagda Daga, I'm alright. Nole Nigohila, Digalakstanaga, I worked all time. And that's Cherokee language, I guess. Shia Okshiwuza, Talina Dan Dagahon, I'll see you again.
My youngest one, that's all he knew when he first talked, was Cherokee. And he picked up English from these other kids before he even started school.
I speak all the time. I don't care if they didn't understand me. I get after them if I speak English. I said, I always tell them I speak in Cherokee.
Well, I use Cherokee, but anytime I'm talking to a Cherokee, it don't matter where it's at. But I'd rather talk Cherokee than English.
Now, me and my grandchildren, I talk to them in Cherokee, and I name them with Cherokee names myself, so I can call them. They name these babies so hard names I ain't never heard in my life. And I can't say their names, so I just name them myself an Indian name. Well, that's the way it was anyway. A long time ago, they had to name them an Indian name. No, they don't even know what their Indian name is.
Prior to colonization, the area that would become North Carolina was home to numerous native language groups, including Iroquoian, Algonquian, and Siouan language families. In 1870, the United States government established mandatory boarding schools for Indians across the country. Young Indians were forced to live apart from their parents in the federal schools. Their hair was cut, their clothes were replaced by school uniforms, and the use of their native language was punished severely. All of these children were assigned new English names.
They wanted to civilize us, I suppose. They were punished for being, for speaking Cherokee, so I think that was when it became endangered. Of course, you know, we feel the effects of it now because there's so many that don't speak the language.
Every time someone that spoke Cherokee dies, and there's been quite a few more and more as they get older, makes me feel kind of bad. So now we use it some here, not like we did. We only have one preacher that could preach Cherokee without any English, only one left. We had two and one died a few months ago.
They did speak in Cherokee, mostly all of them, way back when I was growing up. There wasn't too many people that speak in English, just a few of them. And you'd go to the home, they all speak in Cherokee, everywhere you went. And now, you can't go nowhere, and they'd say, I don't know how to speak it.
Cherokee language is almost gone. There's probably less than 300 Cherokees that speak fluent Cherokee, you know. When I was a kid, I was very much aware of that cadence in the craft shops. I worked in the craft shops down there from the time I was 14. You know, it's probably against the law. Clear up to when I graduated from college. I go back in the summer and work down there in the summer when I was in college. There's an awful lot of fake Cherokees now, guys making a good living pretending to be Cherokees that are really extroverted and sort of show people. You can usually identify a fake Cherokee by his name. You know, if it's a beautiful name, Floating Eagle Feather, you know, Snow Bear, you know, beware, beware, beware. Because the Cherokee names, there are some colorful ones, but what you hear more often is Tune-Eye, Crow, Big Meat, Smoker, Stomper, Swimmer. It don't have the drama that people like in a colorful Princess Pale Moon. Uh-oh, look out. Of course, there's a genuine effort in Cherokee to give you the true Cherokees, but lots of times the tourists aren't interested in that. They want bloody tomahawks and scalping, and they want what they're accustomed to off of the TV. They want to see Deer Slayer right there on Main Street, you know. And if you tell them that the Cherokees were sophisticated and agrarian, they raised cotton, they had their own alphabet, syllabary, their own newspaper back in the 1820s, they get bored. That's not really what they want. It's not the image they want.
The Cherokee culture and language will survive because of the great emphasis that has been going on for the last 5 or 6 years. And I think that we are getting to the children at the right time, and that is birth on. Language is culture. And culture is language.
That's who we are. Our language is who we are. Once you start learning the language, it branches out to all other areas, history, culture, traditions. So when they're learning the language, they're learning, you know, everything about the Cherokee people as well.
Not many of us can fully say things like the older people can, but we're learning, which just makes it better.
Not many people can say they can speak 2 different languages, and I mean, especially a Native American language. And I think it's pretty cool that that's our heritage, that we're learning our heritage.
Like, well, no offense, but if you see like white people and stuff, like talk to each other about them and they don't know. I don't know, it just kind of feels good to have our own language that nobody else can understand.
All our elders know it, but Like, if we don't learn it, it's
and
not,
they're gone, then it's going to be
nobody
gone.
knows it. So if we don't learn it, nobody know it, and it's like our heritage is gone.
And we've got some here yet, you know, speak Cherokee in the 40s and 50s, no kids that speak Cherokee. But they're learning, they sing, the kids catch on quick.
Go in the woods is, you can cut a tree for wood. That wood wouldn't dry out to save your life. It'll lay right down and rot. If you cut it in dark nights, that's when the moon ain't shining at all. It'll lay down and soft rot. Stay so wet the water will run out of it.
Like the Cherokee, the Lumbee Indians of Robertson County have struggled to preserve the culture of their community. Though the Lumbee have no record of their ancestral language, they have developed a dialect of English that is all their own.
The Lumbees have lost whatever tribal language they once had, but I still think that we have an identifying way of speaking that makes us different from any other group in the area.
And children, they coming back. And big brother, I can see him as pretty as I'm looking at you. Come all the way down that ditch bank. I says to myself, I says,
it's like an immediate identification mechanism. Can I talk to this person? Can I trust this person? Do we share common experiences? Do we have a common bond? Everybody wants to belong to something, you know. Everybody wants to feel like a part of something. But you get anywhere away from this immediate area, people, they know it's different. They know it's something they've never heard before, and a lot of times they're fascinated by it because it's, you know, it's something different.
I went with a friend to church to see a Christmas play last year, and this white gentleman who was from Hamlet or Rockingham went with us, and he thought the preacher was speaking in tongues, and he was actually speaking in Lum.
A Lum, that's just lingo, that's just belonging. When you say you're Lum, that's identity. Teachers that would come in outside the community would really downgrade the words that we would use. It's not proper, and you would be punished in certain cases.
High school was fine, and elementary school, because all my teachers were Lumbee, all my friends were Lumbee, all the way through till I graduated. But then when I got in college, it became a little problem dealing with kids from other parts of the world. I attended Sand Hills Community College first, and there was a girl who lived in the boarding house along with me. She was from Florida, and she brought her little sister, and her little sister said, "Boy, you talk funny, you don't talk right, why don't you change the way you talk?" I said, "Well, darling, you sound as funny to me as I do to you, why don't you change the way you talk?"
I didn't want anybody laughing at me. And so I learned, I feel like I learned to be able to use English outside this community in a way that people could understand it. But yet when I come home, I could fit in with the people at home as well.
And we got this BB gun, and there was this dog that come to their house, and Ronnie Allen tried to shoot him with the BB gun, but he missed the dog. But that man jumped up and run in. So Ronnie come back in the house, and he says, "Good night, I believe I shot that man in the hand."
They speak. I can tell if he's a Lum. Even if it's somebody that's been away for years, there's something that lingers about their language that if he talks long enough, you pick it up.
Uncle Sam says we speak no native language. He says we do not live in a traditional way. Therefore, we cannot be Indian. I say for centuries, his ancestors made speaking our native language against the law, made practicing our traditions punishable by him. For this reason, many of our languages have died. Many of our own people know nothing of their culture and history. But the Indian blood runs thick and strong through our veins. We are Native Americans, Indian by birth.
As I talked to the reporter the other day, she said, well, why is language so important? Why does this need to be protected? I said, well, that's how we recognize who we are. You know, not only by looking at someone, we notice who we are by our language. You recognize someone is from Spain because they speak Spanish, or from France because they speak French. I said, and that's how we recognize Lumbees. If we're anywhere in the country and hear ourselves speak, we know exactly who we are.
Language is an important part of all social and cultural groups, but it seems to have a special place in the African American experience.
We've come through racial discrimination. We've come through poverty. We've come through the floods. We've come through a whole lot. But you know what, Princeville? You're still standing.
Even inside the African American community, when you go from region to region, there are really different voices and sounds.
Got in front of them white houses there, in the back of that woods, way back there. It's deep back there. Which they had logged some of it out, but back on the woods where we hunt bears. Usually me and dog would go out there and mow the field paths so they can see them real good. So it's $500, that's the go, and $500 if you kill one. So it's very expensive shooting bears. We'll swing by there and show them windmills on the way back through. Let's swing back through this.
You can tell the difference between an African American who lives in Northeast, because they say scrape, which is not something you'd hear in Durham, or you'd hear in Winston-Salem, or you'd hear in Fayetteville. But if you hear scrate or screet, you know exactly where they came from. Inside the African American community too, there is a love of language. There's a love of listening to different styles of language. It's the music and the poetry of the language, no matter which vocabulary set you're using.
Say what? They'd say honey child, because I would always, it's just a part of my language, honey child, because I talk just like the people at the foot of the Blue Ridge Mountain with that kind of twang and that kind of thing. And so that was just a part of me.
I have noticed this. Every clique has their own lingo. Every clique. It can change from a clique standpoint to a state standpoint to a region standpoint. You see what I'm saying? We might say stuff in North Carolina that people in Georgia might not say, but there may be things that people in North Carolina and South Carolina and Georgia would say all together. See what I'm saying?
I've been told I've talked like I'm from the city. I've been told I talk like I'm from the country. I just talk like I talk. I am who I am.
Only you and you alone can thrill me like you do and fill my heart with love for only you.
Dialect suggested at times a worldview that I was always interested in. There's a form in black dialect, the B form. I'd be doing X, Y, and Z, or I'd be going, or that particular issue, which I always thought was interesting, but maybe very descriptive of being in process, which is somehow not expressed in the regular language pattern.
It's a whole bunch of people in New York that we know from down here, and the way they be talking and stuff, the way they be talking and stuff, they like you can't have to understand them. They have to stutter because they don't know like our language. And that girl that was like yeah.
I know in my church, there's a lot of bending of the rules, you know, i.e. using of language, but it's the use of language in a way to continue to communicate ideas. And oftentimes, it's not just ideas, it's emotions.
Only you can make all this change in me.
Y'all better get out there, bitch, with him. Y'all know who that is. Y'all better get out there, Cowboy.
That's right, baby, that's right. When you come to college, you get folks from upstate, you get folks from down south, so you get a different variety of voices here, but that once you get to know the heart and the spirit of folks, we're all one big family.
I mean, you always want to be connected with a group and making sure that you're continuing to have that touchstone of this is, you know, this is where you came from and this is how the people talk, where you come from. It's really important to not lose that.
You have to be able to relate to your peers and you know, you got to, yo, what up, what's going on, such and such, blah, blah, blah. That's our lingo, man.
What's cracking me? What's up? What's up me? For shizzle me, yeah. Okay. And like when most people say I can't explain. You explain it.
If Fonte comes over and he plays, plays our daughter, and he's like, say word up. And she's like, word up. You know, it's just like in the '60s. If you got right on, yeah, right on, and peace and you know, and all of that. It's about the same thing. So it's a part of our life, just like it's a part of their lives, I guess.
We use that term because that's like a sense of family. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, that's what determines the line. You know what I'm saying? If we're real close, then we're at liberty to talk like that because we understand each other. Where if you're outside and I don't really know you, and you know, it's like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, it's just like, oh, hi, how you doing, man? You know, until I get that vibe that you loosed in, it's, yeah, well, what's up? You know what I mean? But until it gets to that point, then you kind of just do that, you know what I mean, to kind of draw that line. So the more closer you feel to somebody, then you loosen up, and the language plays a big part in that.
I've heard every walk of life say, I'm chilling, I'm cooling, what up, bro, what up, man. All of that is hip-hop music, which is the extension of 70s soul music, which comes off 60s Motown music. I mean, it carries on, So with hip-hop, I don't know where our generation would be as far as the way we speak and everything with our hip-hop music, man.
Every generation has to identify itself and create its own language.
They've negotiated a new space.
One day we'll quote it, and yes, I'm overloaded with rhymes, verbs, punchlines, similes, and metaphors. For better or worse, I crush any competitor's verse, and I keep spitting for PBS and Fonte off of the top, no second guessing. Cause I'm coming through with the right plan. And yes, in hip hop, we do have friends. And yes, he is a white man. His name is Joe Scudder, and he freestyle too. And I'm about to show you just how we do. I'm spitting with my cap on, and I'm gonna pass it to the left, the Scudder, so he can get his rap on. I clap on.
Yo, I'm back on the grind again. Stay reminding them we in the front where the line begin. You in the back where the line go in.
I think it's one of the many markers that people use to decide whether you're in the in group or the out group.
And that's one of the reasons for kind of mimicking the speech of people who you're around, or consciously deciding not to.
We were just talking about it on the way here, how people try to express themselves. Well, you know, you don't need to express yourself so much that when you get out in society, you can't function. Because when you go for a job interview and the person sitting behind the desk, you know, they may not want to hear that.
Particularly in the African American community, there is this idea that, yes, you know, you can speak in a much more relaxed, intimate black speech in certain spaces, and then in other spaces you have to speak a much more common English. And for some people, there's an internal struggle about, should you really do that? Should you really be trying to talk like white folk? Or should you always, all the time, no matter what setting you are in, speak the same way? Speak the same way your mama taught you to speak.
It all depends on what environment you're in expectations of other people, like what they think they need to hear from you. All of these are the kinds of things that you encounter when you're dealing with communication.
Charlotte's the second largest banking city in the country, in the world, I guess. It just has grown so much. It was just a little neighborhood. Mama used to send us up to go to the grocery store, right up there where Discovery Place is now.
In the 20th century, North Carolina cities grew into metropolitan centers of banking and technology. As North Carolina's urban areas have developed and changed, so has the language.
The landscape of the city, the language has changed as well as the landscape of the city. Just like you see a myriad of changes with all of, that's the same way the language has changed.
I think if we were to look at the urbanization of Charlotte and the change in languages, one of the easiest ways to look is to see where the roads were being widened to accommodate the traffic. Who's moved where?
Most of the people here are from someplace else. You don't have, like the typical Charlottean doesn't exist very much. So when you actually hear it, when somebody says, this is a Charlottean accent, you go, oh, that's what a Charlottean sounds like. But it needs to be pointed out.
The older folks, they speak kind of the old country type. But the new people are like next door. He's from Albemarle and she's from New York. So you get a bit of a mix of the speech. But like my parents, they speak the old North Carolina country.
The minute I go out of town or go anywhere, they say, now where are you from, Texas? Makes me so mad I could die.
It's very hard to hear a pure Southern dialect, which suggests to me that it's changed a lot. In fact, I'm always struck by hearing it. Ah, this is someone probably from Charlotte, not from some other place coming to Charlotte.
Most of my neighbors are from Pittsburgh, Syracuse, Puerto Rico, Detroit.
From New York, from, all over the country.
And these Northerners come down here and we take them in. And before you know it, it ain't the same. It's really not. They don't think and act like we do. Well, they sure don't talk like us. They have a sharpness to their speech, don't you think so? Yeah. Most Southerners and all, I feel like we have kind of a soft melody. Of course, why shouldn't I think it? I don't know any difference.
So many of us are coming to the South now, and the whole nature of the South will change because of it. So we will be North Carolinians, whether the locals like it or not.
This community, I think, has always been willing to change. At the same time, I think we've had the feeling that we needed to preserve some of those important qualities that set us apart from other large urban areas.
I think it's more important to be who you are or where you came from and to be of the place. I think the history of a place, the history of your family, the stories that you carry with you are much more important than how you make a living.
And growing up in this neighborhood and knowing, what's moving in, what's migrating in, I think it's great. I really do. Charlotte is very progressive. They want to attract a lot of businesses, and I think that's great. I think it's wonderful.
I want to see Charlotte grow, I watch Charlotte and I watch all the things that happen over here, and I think it's wonderful. I don't want us to lose all of our Southern charm, but I think it's okay to lose some of it. And I think it's okay for us to not sound so country.
This is a business town. Business and economics and banking are sort of the tail that wags the dog here. In order to be able to transfer, in order to be able to be promoted, to be successful, it's good to sound very professional when you get on the phone with someone in New York or San Francisco. So people erase the accent that makes them who they are.
There certainly has been a subtle change in linguistic quality, if you will. It was a little different back in the days when everybody was working in a cotton mill and they had certain styles that were appropriate then. Communication today is so important, not only in the words you say, but in the way you say them. The image that we project is in large measure determined by the way we say it. If we aren't very careful, we might be characterized as a country bumpkin, for example.
I don't think it's a great big deal to lose the South in Charlotte, because Charlotte is moving up. If you're from the South, you're supposed to talk with a twang and a na-na-na-na-na. Nah, not anymore.
I think we've changed a lot in the way we view people and the way we see people coming in. We used to be kind of afraid of people who came in, and I don't think we are anymore. I think we're happy to have them, even if it does change our sense of place, or even if it does change our accents or change how we talk or what we think. I think that's okay.
That's okay.
I think that's it. Well, we're evolving.
In recent years, the growing Spanish-speaking population has made Spanish a vital part of the language scene in North Carolina.
Yo al menos cuando llegué aquí dije, bueno, si vengo a trabajar, tengo que comunicarme con mi patrón, con quien sea, ¿verdad? Con un amigo. Entonces, si yo vengo aquí, yo tengo que venir con una idea de también aprender inglés. Porque yo pienso que si yo no aprendo inglés, siempre voy a estar atenida a otra persona.
Bueno, definitivamente reconocemos que el idioma es una barrera donde la escuela se siente responsable de educar a nuestros niños en la enseñanza del idioma inglés, siempre recordándole a nuestra comunidad de que nuestras raíces, nuestras tradiciones y nuestra cultura nunca deben desaparecer de los hogares de nuestros hogares. O sea que es bien importante aprender el idioma inglés sin olvidarnos de dónde venimos, para así saber para dónde vamos. Esa es mi visión.
When I go home, I talk to my children in Spanish, which they hate, by the way, because they say, "Mom, talk to us in English," and I say, "Oh no, you need to learn the language. You need to be bilingual."
There is a process that you go through as a second language speaker, becoming really comfortable with the new culture.
It's very important when they come in with the United States, because it's the key for the language. If you don't have English, you don't have nothing. I think so.
I started dreaming in English, and I remember that, thinking, wow, I'm becoming fluent, that my dreams are in English. And then there came this place where I'm like, well, who am I now? Because now I write in English, I read in English, and I speak English most of the day. And that was really confusing, and then that's when it starts hitting you, where you go, oh, I don't know who I am. Am I my language?
They're going to learn English because they have to know how to function in America. They probably already know English before they get here. But we as American society, we're a multicultural society, or at least we claim to be, so we should at least know how to communicate with at least one other nationality.
El vocabulario del libro, por favor, en la página 11, muy bien. Los abuelos.
I think more and more you see the translations for both, and I think that we have to be considerate of others as well and start learning other languages and other cultures too.
I believe that little by little Spanish is taking or acquiring a lot of importance in the culture of the United States. It has become the second language in the United States. A lot of students are very interested in learning the language just because of newspapers, media, and other venues of interaction with Hispanics. I would say that perhaps in the near future, this country will be bilingual, Spanish and English.
Se ha volcado sobre la altura de la Glenwood Avenue. Capitán Boulevard hacia el sur está todo tranquilón entre Wake Forest y Raleigh. La Durham Freeway o la 147 están pasadas de tráfico desde Lewisburg Road hasta la 440. El tráfico está totalmente detenido. Muy buenos días. Sonríe, ¿estás en la cámara? Estamos en la cámara. Muy buenos días. Es la ley 96.9 FM. A lot of the Hispanics that now own automobiles, they'll put a piece of their country on their car, whether it be a flag, whether it be their cap or something hanging off of their mirror that indicates who they are. Hispanics are very proud of their origin, very proud of their heritage, and more so very proud of their culture.
Toque ahí algo.
¿No es música usted por casualidad, señor? ¿Está segura? English will become their first language because that's what they're learning in school, that's what they're watching on TV. They'll have to communicate in Spanish in order to have some kind of correlation with the family unit, but this is a new community in a new land. The culture is something that they bring with them and they'll die with them, no matter where they're at.
Even if it's an American person who can speak Spanish, I will just engage in the Spanish conversation because it feels good. It's a part of who I am. I am somebody who originally was nurtured by this language, and so I want to hear it. So I seek out conversation in Spanish. And then when you find somebody that is amazingly fluent like you are in both languages, then there's this interesting dance, you know, like there's somebody calls you on the phone and you hear a little bit of an accent, and so you kind of know that they speak Spanish and they hear your little bit of accent, and so then there's like, so normally I will make the first move and I'll say something in Spanish, and then they'll go, oh, which language would you rather talk in? And then I say, well, whichever of the two, so we just go into Spanglish, you know?
It's what's happening to the American mind, I think, in lots of ways. We've gone through our period of adolescence as a country. We now know the value of history. We now know why we should preserve buildings and languages and people and traditions, because they become a part of what you really are.
I play a game when I'm working with students. I ask them to lower their eyes for a second and pretend they can't see me. Pretend I'm behind a screen and they're listening to me talk. And as they hear me talk, they can hear that I have a number of Southern features that they associate with upper or middle class in my voice, with the R's, the Ah's, and the G's. They'll hear that it's sort of Southern, but I talk too fast to be deep South. I don't have that soft spread-on bread from Savannah or some of the areas around in there. You can hear that I'm over 18. I've lost that beautiful breathless quality, that I am, we hope, under 80 because it's not thoroughly cracked. You can hear that I probably like the situation. I have some education. I like the speaker, and if you listen for another minute, you can hear me smile at you. You give away all of that every time you say anything. That's what an accent tells you.
If you want to use this colony, open up the great big map and I yodel on the mountain, I yodel on the hill.
I need a lady, I need a lady, oh lady.
Ready?